Yo, what is up guys, Ghost here, welcome back to Stormgate Central, and today we're going to be going over 10 massive changes that are coming to competitive Stormgate in early access. So I honestly thought I'd put out my final video before early access begins yesterday when I did the cast of Mixu versus Snockstar, but it turns out that Frostgiant have just dumped some really big changes over on the Reddit forums. Now, we don't have the full patch notes for the game yet. I have contacted Gerald, the community manager, and I've asked when those are going to be ready. There is no ETA at the moment, but as soon as we have the full patch notes, and believe me guys, there are a lot of changes coming to the game in early access, I will be covering those in depth here on the channel. So make sure that you are subscribed if you want to see more Stormgate news. I'm of course going to be doing more guides, build orders, tutorials and that sort of thing for you guys, as well as covering pro level games here on the channel. So if that's something that you're interested in, then please hit up subscribe, and as always guys, thank you so much for the support here. Okay, so the first big change here is going to be to the creep camps in the game. So creep camps are going to be more powerful and you're going to get more rewards from them than you did in the previous playtest, which was called Frigate. So they say here that creep camps are a crucial part of our game, but we received feedback that the rewards they provided were not enticing enough relative to the risk and attention that it required to kill them. We reworked the creep camps to both be more enticing and difficult to kill, allowing them to play a much more impactful role in the game. And that is definitely something I've noticed in competitive games. Some players prefer to go for those creep camps, others will just entirely ignore them, and that sounds like it's not really going to be a route you can take anymore. If you let your opponent take those camps, they're going to have such an economical lead that you're going to come out behind, so very interesting stuff there. Alright, the next one here is going to be some map reworks. So they say we've made a ton of changes to every map that drastically alters how they play. Most notably, the positions of creep camps have been tweaked on every single map. Some maps, such as Titan's Causeway and the Isle of Dread, have undergone huge reworks based on player feedback, and combined with the creep reworks, each map should now feel like a new experience. So really interested to see what they've done with them here. I think definitely Titan's Causeway was one of the least popular maps. It really feel like it did need some changes, so I'm very happy to hear that they've changed that one. Isle of Dread was one of the new maps that came in Frigate, so interested to see what they've done with that, and it is good to hear that they are continuing to iterate upon the maps here. Okay, so the next one is increased tier up times, and they say we've increased the time that it takes to tier up your command structures to reinforce more distinct early, mid, and late game phases. In addition, this change allows tiering up to be more meaningful gates to key pieces of powerful tech, no more rising up the corporate ladder in record time for those easy promotions. So the way this used to work is that you pretty much just had to get enough Therium and Luminite to tech up, and the tech up itself only took, what, like 10-15 seconds? It was pretty quick, so you could get out of the early game and into that mid-level, like tier 2 tech very, very quickly, almost skipping the early game entirely, especially if you're playing as the Vanguard, right, because they have so many defensive capabilities there. So now it's going to take much longer to actually acquire that upgrade. It's going to mean that perhaps your command center or your shrine or whatever could get sniped off in the meantime, which could be really, really huge there. And it's, I guess, going to open up some more timing attack windows as well, where players can go for those early rushes if they see that their opponent is deciding to tech up, and hopefully get in there before the tech, comes into play. Okay, at number 4, we have more economic harassment options. So for this one, they've said, we agree with the feedback that it was a bit difficult to harass players' economy, especially for the Celestials. While we never want worker harassment to be too volatile, we think the current situation discourages engagement with each other's bases. As a result, we've tweaked Bob Overcharge, Prisms, and Collection Arrays. Let us know how this feels after you test this out for yourselves. So, not surprised to see that they've tweaked Bob Overcharge. We've seen Mixu playing a few games here on the channel recently. He's a really great Vanguard player, and there he showcases just how powerful the Bob Overcharge was. Like, I would sometimes legit be surprised during a cast to see that he managed to defend something with just Bob Overcharges, where I had already called that Infernal player was going to take him down. So yeah, I think Bob Overcharge definitely was a little bit OP. Very interested to see exactly how they've nerfed it here and by how much. I'm not sure I agree too much about the Prisms and the Collection Arrays though. Sure, you could float away with the Prisms, but it really didn't take much pressure at all to shut down a Collection Array. You basically just had to go and harass it with really any unit in the game, and the Celestial player would be forced to lift off their Collection Array and start to float away. And Sure, he maybe saved the collection array, but he wasn't mining in the meantime, so definitely some interesting changes there. Okay, at number 5, we have Veterancy Specialization. So we've standardized the Veterancy bonus to grant health and damage bonuses across the board, as well as one special bonus that makes veteran units do their job better. Combined with the promote ability, our intention is that you'll be able to more specialize into key units that counter your opponent's army. Suddenly surprised by a ton of Spriggans, pump out a Hornet and promote it for an effective counter. So this is interesting. It sounds like on top of the health and the damage bonuses that we're used to for Veterancy, each of the units is going to get like its own specialization. That sounds really, really cool. Interested to see what those are all going to be. Although I did feel like Veterancy in general and the promote ability were pretty damn powerful in Frigate, you know, so I hope they've maybe somewhat nerfed promote. I do feel as though the energy cost for promote was perhaps a little bit on the low side and a little bit too spammable. Especially in that early game, you could just get out those fully promoted hedgehogs, fully promoted scouts and whatnot, and just really gain a big advantage there. So yeah, interesting changes there. Okay, at number 6, we have bringing back Infestation. So they say, in our Elephant closed beta release, the Gaunt's Infest passive was overly centralizing the early game, causing too many fiends to be generated before players of other factions could reasonably hold them off. In our Frigate release, we removed the Infestation passive and instead kitted them to be more of a speedy skirmisher. While we got the feedback that the new Gaunt was very fun to play with, others felt that the Gaunt had lost some of its soul and identity, and I do have to agree there. As such, we're reintroducing the Gaunt's ability to infest, but putting it behind an upgrade so we can delay the timing at which it comes online. This allows them to be the best of both worlds, a speedy skirmisher that also infests. So I do think that the infest mechanic is, of course, an integral part of playing as the Infernals, and it really did feel like an integral part of the Gaunt. Without infest, Gaunts to me do kind of feel like they're just, you know, somewhat of a boring ranged unit, I guess. It's really the infestability that made the Gaunt, but I think this is a good compromise, right? They were a little bit too overpowered being able to infest very, very early in the game. It allowed for some crazy pushes with a bunch of fiends that you'd sort of mopped up from killing all of those creeps around the map, so yeah, good changes there. Okay, in at number 7, we have Animus tweaks. So they say here, similarly in our Elephant release, Animus was generated too slowly early game, but too quickly later on. In Frigate, we made some changes that normalized the regeneration rate, but the resulting numbers made Animus too rare, causing Animus rituals to hardly be used. Specifically, we removed the ability to gain Animus from killing enemy units. While this allowed Animus to become more of a comeback mechanic, a negative side effect was that it de-incentivized Infernal players from creeping and trading, which wasn't very thematic with what the Infernals are all about. In early access, killing enemy units will now grant Animus, and Animus rituals have all been rebalanced to encourage players to use their abilities. So beware of that, guys. You can expect the Infernals to be plopping down way more of their abilities early on in the game. Now, this is a big one here. At number 8, we have Celestial Power and Construction reworked. So first of all, for the power here, they say we received 2 main pieces of feedback from our first iteration of power. First of all, it felt more stick than carrot, more of a punishment than a bonus, and secondly, that it felt binary. You never really cared about how much power you had, just that you were not in the red, right? You didn't have too little power. So they've made a few changes to address this. You can now gain passive bonuses for being in yellow or green power. Red power no longer prevents you from building structures, attacking with structures, or using energize from power banks. Astral interventions now cost power, which recharges over time, and power redistribution has been replaced with power surge. So I kind of like this, right? Instead of going down the route of like punishing you as a player for not having enough power, it sort of sounds like they're rewarding you for keeping the power in the yellow or in the green. So if you do go into red power or into yellow power, it's not the biggest deal in the world. You can still build, you can still play the game. But if you're in the green, you're going to be able to use more powerful abilities, and of course you're apparently going to gain some of these passive bonuses. And then there's construction. So the most prominent feedback we received about Celestials was just how difficult it is to understand where to start due to their build options being locked behind the quick macro panel. And I know I was definitely one of those people. In addition, players were confused why certain buildings were built from the morph core and others were built through the quick macro panel. In response, we've surfaced additional ways to build structures without accessing the quick macro panel and allowing morph cores to morph into any structure more efficiently than through other means. We hope this feels more intuitive and player friendly. So presumably now you can just click on the Arc ship or the Arc station and have it build something just by pressing Z on the keyboard as you would with the other two races. Not sure, very interesting there, but that does make a lot of sense, especially for new players who are coming into the game and may feel a little bit lost. At number 9, we have upgrades galore. So they say we've added 27 new upgrades into the game, many of them tier 3 upgrades that will change the way that you use lower tier units in the game. In addition, we've added faction-wide upgrades that affect core faction mechanics. Some of our favourite upgrades include Survival Protocol, so this allows Exos to negate fatal damage once every 120 seconds, so basically cheat death for the Exos. That's insane, dude. Molten Touch allows the Hellborn to light enemy units on fire. Really like that one as well, very dangerous. Dive Bomb allows the Shadow Flyers to dive bomb enemy structures. Okay, interesting. So Shadow Flyers are no longer just going to be an air-to-air unit, they're actually going to be able to deal damage to structures, it sounds like now. And then Darkness Spreads increases the radius of all Shroud by 50%. Wow, that's powerful as well. So that's obviously one of the faction-wide abilities that you can get there for the Infernals. Very interested to honestly get my hands on these patch notes so I can detail all of this juicy stuff for you guys. And then coming in at number 10 here, we have less durable towers. So finally, we received feedback that turtling with towers was too strong a strategy in our final closed beta playtest. We attribute this to the strength of and especially the durability of towers, and that the only counters to towers were artillery units that could be zoned out by more artillery units from other factions. To address this, the spammable towers from Infernals and Celestials were reduced in durability, and we've added some abilities that allow for alternative ways to counter or bypass the towers. In addition, we hope that by highlighting the importance of creep camps, turtling on low base counts will be less enticing. Going into early access, the strength of towers is something we'll be closely monitoring. So, obviously, they don't want people to just sit in their bases, go on one base, go on two base, quickly tech up to tier 2 units and then move out on the map with like a quick timing attack, right? They want you to get out on the map, they want you to take those creep camps, and I think these changes to the towers certainly reflect that. So guys, really interesting changes here. Let me know what you think of them down below in the comments. I am going to be streaming the game later on today as soon as it launches over on my Twitch channel, so there is going to be a link to that down in the description. I've also got a bunch of early access packs from Frostgiant that I'm going to give away to you guys over the next few days, so if you want a chance of winning one of those, make sure you're tuning into the stream on a regular basis. And don't forget, on the 15th of August, there is going to be that show match between Theory and Parting that I will be casting alongside Titan on Fire over on the More Gaming Team Twitch channel. I'll also leave a link to that one in the description as well. But otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching the video today. As always, thank you for the support. I really appreciate it. You guys are the best. Have a good one, and I will see you in Stormgate today.